go. Okay, let's wait for this to go live. Okay, we've got some people joining. Fantastic, welcome. Hello everyone, my name is Isabelle Kent, and today I have the great joy of interviewing Babajide Olatunji for the Kolnagi Foundation. This is the fourth in our series of live interviews where we're talking to artists and creatives whose work engages with the old masters and reinterprets them for our modern age. I'm really excited to be talking to Babajide today. He is a Yoruba artist living and working in Lagos, Nigeria. He's a self-taught artist who creates these incredible, monumental canvases and works on paper. And he's had numerous exhibitions in London at the Taffeta Gallery and in Lagos. Jide's work explores themes of Yoruba history and culture. So in his Tribal Marks series, which are these very intimate close-up portraits on a huge scale, he looks in depth at the historical practice of facial scarification. In another of his series, History of the Yorubas, he looks to the tradition of European history painting, looking to artists such as Diego Velázquez, Caravaggio, David, Jericho, these sorts of figures. And using these influences, he makes paintings that depict events from Yoruba history. So I am so excited to be talking to Jide today. So without further ado, let me add him to the chat. Let's see. He's just joining. Hi, Jide.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Hi. Good evening.
Good.
I'm fine, thank you.
I think your camera is on sideways. Is there a way of turning it so it's straight? Fantastic.
Okay.
Just because Instagram isn't very good at automatically rotating it.
Okay.
Perfect.
Better, yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's fine.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great.
I'm good.
And tell
How
me
about you?
Yeah, no, I'm doing really well, thanks. Tell me, where in the world are you right now?
In Lagos, Nigeria.
Yeah, and you're in your studio as well?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Yes.
Cool. I see the painting behind you. It looks like an unfinished work. I know we're going to be talking about it later.
Yeah, it's a work in progress from the Tribal Marks series.
Yeah, cool. Great. Well, so I want to talk all about your sort of early artistic education, about your works and things like that, but I thought I'd start with a really big question, because your art all seems to carry a strong message, and I mean, it's really powerful work. So I wanted to ask you, what is your art trying to achieve? What are you trying to do with your works of art?
Well, it's pretty simple. I'm from the western part of Nigeria, from the Yoruba tribe, and I grew up ingrained in the things that affect our culture, the things that are about our culture, and it's made me realize, since I have this gift to paint and I've practiced for years and years and I can do it quite well, then I want to tell a story to the world. I want to paint portraits, paint canvases that push our culture to the world. It's as if we're introducing ourselves in another dimension.
Yeah.
Using large canvases and portraits. So.
Yeah, amazing, and it certainly does that. I mean, I know that you're represented by a gallery in London, the Taffeta Gallery, and
yes,
so yeah, being able to show your art to the world, and your art does have a very strong message. Your history paintings, learning about the history. I know we're going to talk about it more. The two of us have talked about it in the past, about the sort of stories that you're talking about, and it's really fantastic that that's coming across and being shown to the world, people who might not necessarily know as much about Yoruba culture and history, which before talking to you I was definitely one of those people. So no, it's really great. And it speaks to the power of art to share and educate, which I know, again, I want to talk to you more about later, because I know you have strong views about that too.
Okay.
Going back to the beginning, tell me a little bit about how you got into art, where you started, and how you developed this very sort of distinctive, the works that you make. So,
Okay. Uh, well, art for me has always been part of my life. I've always drawn. I've always drawn since my earliest memories. I've
yeah,
always seen myself or remembered myself drawing in anything I could find on sand. So I drew through primary, secondary school, a little through the earlier part of my university education, and then more towards the end. So it's always been a part of my life. I was introduced to drawing by my elder brother. He's late now, but he used to make these caricature sketches then of different faces, like emojis, before we have um, emojis now. So I used to make this
okay,
smiley faces, grimaces, or smiles, with a frown and all that. So I used to be fascinated by those things, how beautiful they look to them. Simple, line drawings and beautiful.
mm,
So I'll try to copy them. And so long after he left visual art for writing and other pursuits he had then, I stuck with drawing. So
yeah,
it was part of my growing up in primary school. I got in trouble a lot for drawing in class while we were being taught other things. Yeah,
yeah,
although it was helpful for me because I'm more of a visual person when it comes to remembering things.
mm,
So I have to see it in my mind and then maybe paint it out or use what I was drawing at that point as a reference point for what were being taught. So in exam, I remember, I was drawing this then. This is what the teacher said then. Then I
mm,
can remember and um,
yeah,
write whatever I have to write in exams. So it was helpful for me then, drawing. And then when I got into secondary school, I continued to. I had friends that I used to draw to, and we drew together. We exchanged. You make sketches, you trade them
mm,
for the sketches. And then when I was in secondary school, my brother got into university, and then he used to bring this comic books home, Spider-Man, Superman, all these guys with muscles and all that. So I would want to copy them because it was mind blowing how someone could draw something so intricate. So I want to copy them, and inadvertently I was building my own skills. Yeah. So when I got into university, I just continued from there. It was part of what I used to sort of train myself through my second to the last year of university. So it was a useful tool. I used to make portraits for people, maybe want to do their birthdays and
yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because you were
it was helpful.
studying botany, weren't you? Did you ever do any drawing with your botany at university, or did you sort of have that on one side, the science brain, and then the art brain was for your
No,
spare time?
yeah. The funny thing is, all through my education, being able to draw has always been an advantage for me. So if you have any illustrations in class, or maybe you're looking through the microscope at a cell or anything of that sort, it's very easy for me to remember what I saw later
Yeah,
and to draw it in exam. So it was always useful for me to have the skills as a draftsman, I think,
yeah,
here, and then the painter later here. So
yeah. No, it's that's great. And then I know you were contacted by the Taffeta Gallery, and that's when you really is that right? That's when you really started to go down a career that was your art career rather than say following the sciences. Is that right?
yeah, but before Tafeta came along, I was just drawing. I
Yeah,
didn't have a specific trajectory like that, but it was just something I loved doing, and
yeah,
I continued doing it. So I think I did a piece then when we first met, me and the director of Tafeta. His name is Ayode Inka.
mhm,
So I was doing the piece then, and then after painting the portrait, I realized I don't actually see people paint portraits with tribal marks on them. Like,
mm,
why? So I was a bit worried I might ruin the painting, the drawing then. But I just took a leap of faith and did the tribal marks on it. And then
yeah,
it looked beautiful. Yeah.
yeah,
So I spoke with the guy, the director, and he said we should do a project on that. And then so I did a lot more studies about the significance of the tribal marks in southwestern Nigeria, in Africa. Yeah. So its significance in the time of slavery and all that. So
yeah.
Yeah,
Your
it's
tribal mark series, they're not portraits of people that you know or that you're seeking out. They're
no.
from your mind, and then you have researched, right? You've researched the types of markings that people might have and things like that. I wonder, could you tell me a bit more about the history of these marks
Okay.
and your research into them?
Yeah, so the Travel Mark series is it's multifaceted. The purpose for it, first I wanted to study portraiture more. You know, there's this Italian word chiaroscuro for the relation between light and dark. Now, I was always curious about how to walk from light to dark seamlessly. Like I think Da Vinci did with the Mona Lisa. I think it was Fumato, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. All
So
the Italian terms down.
yeah, so studying those styles and trying to improve my own skills too. One, and then I also was fascinated by how remarkably exact Travel Mark series was to identifying people anywhere in the world. I do say this that if you put there's a part of Nigeria called where the Kanuri people stay, which is the northern part of Nigeria. If you put a Kanuri man anywhere in the world, anywhere at all in the world, you'd know exactly where it's from. You know his family, you'd know his clan. So that's how exact, before we have facial recognition, DNA, and fingerprinting and all that. So you could find out exactly where a person was from using the tribal marks. And then it was also important during slavery, during colonialism, when people wouldn't allow their kinsman to be sold to slavery. And then people could, I do say this thing that if you find an African American trying to find out his ancestry, if he finds anybody in his lineage having tribal marks, he knows where it's from exactly.
Wow.
It's very direct. You don't need to look any further. Once you find that person with the tribal marks on their faces, then it's you're home already. Yeah. So it was a mix between trying to develop my skills as a portraitist and also trying to preserve this culture of tribal facial scarification.
It's fascinating how much the markings can link to, you can pinpoint where someone is from with that, because I think a lot of people, we think of the marks, you were saying how when you put them onto the face, it made the portrait look so much more beautiful. And these are really beautifying features, beautifying elements and so I before seeing your work and reading more about your work, I didn't realize how closely they could be linked and how you can really track, the exact family and everything. It's fascinating.
You could do that with precision. It's exact. Once you find out the tribal marks, there's a royal the royal family in Oyo and or the Oyo Empire before it fell. So you could find out where if anyone was from the royal family or from any family at all in that era, that region, by the marks on their faces. So it's very exact.
Have the marks of the royal family?
What did you say?
I wondered, do any of your tribal marks portraits have the marks of the royal family?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Saying they're, princess.
There's a mark called the Pele, which is 4 on the side of the cheeks. Yeah. I think about an inch apart. Yeah. So it's part of the marks of the royal family. And then there's I'm not sure if this is from the royal family or not, but there's the gombo, which is drawn from the temples down to the cheekbones, down all the way. Wow. And then there's an ibamu here, which is across the nose, the bridge of the nose down to the cheek, on the left or the right side. So that is for the specific people in the Bomosho.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a remarkable practice.
Amazing. Yeah. And
so part of my purpose is
go ahead.
Part of my purpose, is to archive these things. So, we've been saying it's a dying culture since the 90s or so, although it still persists since some people in the deep inland, the small villages and all that, they still practice it.
Okay.
But it will get to a point where you won't find as much people as used to have it. So it's a dying culture. I'm not an opponent or proponent of it. I just want to preserve it. Yeah. So in future, we can have people, go to museums around the world, hopefully, and see portraits, and then you can tell your grandchild or something that your granddad, this is the tribe he's from. Yeah. This is the kind of mark to have there, something like that. Yeah. So.
No, and it's wonderful. The idea of your work being, and I'm sure it will be, around the world and in various museums, and people being able to have access to this culture when a lot of representations of tribal marks that you see in European museums, or you see, they're either, you know, from ancient sort of African objects and things like that, or they are colonial art, which doesn't see these marks in as intricate and as personal way. It sees them in a much more kind of sort of looking back at the concept of the sort of noble savage idea, which is obviously ridiculous. And so what your art does is, I mean, your art is so intimate, and this large scale, and this idea, I think your art gives a lot of power to the people who are being depicted. You know, it gives them a real presence and a real intimacy. And so, you know, that seeing that those markings, it totally changes the way that we would think about them. You know, it changes the narrative, I think, quite strongly.
Yeah, it's like reclaiming the purpose for the marks in the first place.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's this thing we used to grow up, and I know it's a funny thing, but they say if someone travels to maybe Europe and UK or something, and then you see a Yoruba man with the marks on their face, you ask them, did you fight a lion or something? Yeah, maybe you got scars from, you know, being clawed by a lion. Yeah. So, you know, you make jokes like that, but now you're being told what exactly these things were for, and what significance they had in our history, and how significant they are still now.
And that's the wonderful thing, you know, that art can do, that I think, you know, it's, you were talking about the sort of the immediacy of art, you know, being able to just see and look, and you learning from looking more than, say, from reading from books or anything like that. And I think that art and museums, that's the sort of one of the great purposes that they can have, is to, you know, is to educate, is to make people rethink, you know, past assumptions, or just sort of see nuance in, see how nuanced other cultures are. And the other thing I want to talk about is, you were talking about Caravaggio and the inspiration of that. And I wanted to ask, where did this interest in the old masters come from? And also, you know, I just think it's so fascinating that you're, you know, looking to these artists and copying, and it's not through a formal artistic training element, which I think a lot of people, you know, wherever they are in the world, they come to old masters because they're being taught about them in schools. But you really have come to these and are training to learn about things like sfumato of your own accord. So I wondered where that passion came from.
Okay, it's, you know, I grew up knowing about the big three, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and Raphael. So a bit about them, a lot about Mona Lisa, because it's, I think, the
most famous painting,
the most famous painting in the world. So my curiosity grew when I found out there was a style of painting called hyperrealism. So when I realized that people could do this, make things so exact, like you don't know if it's a portrait, you don't know if it's a painting, or if it's a picture. So my curiosity grew, and then I wanted to learn more about where it started from. Although it started way longer than that, you know, art from antiquity, you know. But, you know, the Renaissance was where there was like a resurgence in perfection when it comes to architecture, art, painting, and I think the third part, I can't quite remember which it was, but architecture and painting were like a resurgence in interest in how to make them perfect. So I wanted to know who the champions were this time. Vasari, the biographer, very ambitious, you know, the Hall of the 500. So I was fascinated by how they focused, you know, intense focus on their crafts, doing one painting for over 20 years and things like that. So I realized these were human beings too, and they could do this then. So I wanted to learn more about them. So I learned about people from the early Renaissance, Albrecht Dürer, Jean Van Eyck. You know, I love the Arnolfini wedding, Arnolfini portrait rather. I love it.
I like your two titles there. You clearly know your stuff about the debate about painting as well. Is it a marriage? Is it a portrait? Who knows?
Exactly. It's amazing when I look at the canvas. So down to Caravaggio, his use of chiaroscuro, tending towards tenebroso. The light and contrast, bringing a lot of contrast into a painting to make it more three-dimensional. So then down to purposeful art. Well, the art then was purposeful too, but down to paintings that kind of sobered me, like Francis Goya's Second and Third of May.
Oh.
You know, the French painter Jericho, his Wrath of the Medusa. You know, Liberty Leading the World by what's his name? Delacroix, yeah. So I had to learn a lot about all these guys to understand how they thought, how they presented their art. And I realized that in our own history, in African history, there was, we had all this incredible sculptures, this bronze sculptures then of the faces that were taken. And there was a kind of a period where they were creating art, but it was like there was no, like a lag, as if we didn't continue with the world. Then before we had Aina Onobolu, a portrait painter from the early 20th century.
Okay.
So that was like a new start. So I realized when you go to any museum in the world or any gallery in the world, you don't see giant scale canvases telling you about the history of these Nigerians, these Yoruba people, or these Africans, wherever they may be from. You don't see a lot of this. So I wanted it to be a role for me to play to, having studied and still studying the Italian masters, the European masters, to paint in this style, so we also can contribute to having large scale canvases representing our own culture in the world, so people can go and learn about us, can tell stories about the incredible stories in our pantheon,
Yeah.
So it's part of my purpose.
Yeah, no, amazing. And it brings us so neatly on to talking about your history painting series, which is the history of the Yorubas. And, that was volume 1 of that, which I'm going to ask you to explain in a bit, but that was the first painting by you that I ever saw. And it was immediately, I looked at that and, I'm an art historian, but I'm a specialist in the Baroque period, and particularly the Spanish Baroque. And so I looked at it and I thought, oh my gosh, he's looking at Velázquez. He's
Velázquez,
looking
at, sure.
Apollo at the Forge of Vulcan, that painting. Yeah. And I thought, okay, I've got to learn more about this artist, because it was such an interesting juxtaposition of this this story from Yoruba history, or from Yoruba myth, as you're going to outline, I'm sure, and then this sort of Greek mythology of Apollo at the Forge of Vulcan that Velázquez is painting. And so I immediately thought, I have to find out more what this artist is doing. It's so fascinating and so cool. So could you tell me a little bit about that painting, about the story behind it, and
Okay. Yeah. So the history of the Yorubas, volume 1. It's an imaginary scene of Obatala and the Forge of Shokoti, which is the blacksmith of the realm of the gods. Obatala is like an elder god, which is he's the one that came to Earth to create humans.
Okay.
Yeah. So he went to Olodumare, which is like the god beyond all gods. Yeah. The god beyond the gods. Yeah, all gods. Yeah. Olodumare, and asked Olodumare for permission to come to Earth to create human beings. So after that, he went to Orunmila. So Orunmila was a seer, he is a god of prophecies. So he told him the things he was going to need to come to Earth with to create humans. Need a white cock, a chameleon, and a snail shell filled with sand, and a gold chain to bring him down to Earth. So the sand was supposed to be spread on Earth, and then the cock would spread it with, the way chickens spread Earth with their feet. Exactly, yeah. So spreading the Earth with its feet caused the land masses to be created, the hills, the valleys, and all that. So it was all, Earth was filled with water then, and was in the in the care of another god, which is Olokun. It's called Olokun, which is the owner of the seas. Yeah. So my the history of the Yorubas, volume 1, is a mythical scene where he went to Shokoti. It's just me creating the scene. It was not in the story, because what I wanted to do was to achieve a canvas that contained a lot of chiaroscuro, just painting light. Yeah, I wanted to do something striking, something that tells you about the culture, and at the same time shows that this is possible. This can be done. Yeah, and so the painting is it's more or less like you said. I got inspired a lot by Velázquez, Caravaggio himself, Rembrandt, the way they use light and shade. Yeah, I love the way they handle light, which is one of some of the things that I employed in the painting. Yeah, so then I studied some other things about like depth of field, vanishing points, and the way light affects carries your eye around a canvas. Yeah, so that really informed how I painted the portrait.
Yeah.
So if we're going to be technical, Obatala was center stage, of course. And there's this thing is looking out at the audience. There's this thing I think about. I don't know, maybe it's been thought about before, or maybe it's already been talked about, but like I said, yeah. So I believe if you're looking at the painting, the canvas, if there's anyone in the subject looking out at the audience, it's as if they're inviting you to be a part of the painting, as if you're not separated from it, you're part of it. Yeah. But if they're just doing their thing and you're just looking on, they're just supposed to be an onlooker, not a co-participant in what's happening there. So I painted Obatala looking out at the audience as if he's calling us to be co-creators, humans to, we're imbued with all this ability to create a lot of things, technological advancements and in medicine and all that, And I believe it can still be traced back to humans being created. Yeah. So he looking out at the audience, wanting us to be part of the creation process. Yeah. And then, of course, the vanishing points, it's at his head and spreads out there. Then I employed the Fibonacci sequence, which is a sequence of numbers where a successive number, it's a result of the addition of the previous two.
Yeah.
So 1 and 1 is 2. What did you say?
I said I can tell you're a scientist, the Fibonacci sequence.
Okay, So so 1 and 1 is 2, golden ratio, all this thing, So just to make sure that the work comes out the way I want it to come out. So I was drawn to Apollo at the Forge of Vulcan by how natural Velázquez created the scene. It's so the pose of Vulcan himself, so relaxed, but you could see it's like I read somewhere that's like his ego was wounded by the news he was getting.
Right.
The way he was standing here.
Yeah.
And then it's even if he'd been given that news when he was by himself, it would be easier. But his apprentices were there, and he was being told
his pride is hurt, and you can see that in the Velázquez.
Exactly.
He's very contrapposto. You mentioned
contrapposto.
That's an S-shaped body, and it's it looks like he's kind of a macho guy who's
macho,
now embarrassed, in
pride.
front of everything, and his pride is hurt. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
Exactly. So that naturalness. Velázquez wasn't trying too hard. He just wanted to get the message. He wasn't trying too hard. I saw it also in Caravaggio's work, and some other painters too, where they paint people kneeling down in front of they call them peasants, kneeling down in front of the Virgin Mary. And then you can look at the soles of their feet, and it's black, and that they can't really afford maybe shoes to wear or something like that. So how natural, and there's no barrier between you and the painting. Whatever he wants to say, he says it directly to you. So which is why I chose the style of painting that I paint in anyway, to make it as direct, as unambiguous as possible.
I wonder, when you were talking about having the figure looking out at the audience to invite them in, I wonder if you've seen this, because in paintings, often in historic paintings, the person looking out, there's often one person, and it's the artist. So it's often the artist paints themselves looking out. So they're the one, they're usually in the background somewhere, but they're the one that kind of does a little sort of nod to the audience to say,
exactly.
I know that you're there. Like you can like I've made it so that you can see this scene and so that you can come in. And so I love
Yeah.
that you've been
Yes.
doing that too.
Yeah. Yeah. For example, in Jacques Louis David's The Coronation of Napoleon,
Mhm.
he was there in the audience. Once a small
Yeah,
portrait of him, and he was looking out at us. Yeah. So it's everywhere like that, where someone is looking out at you and
yeah.
as if he's inviting you in.
I also, you know, from an art historical point of view, and the fact that you were looking at the Velázquez, I really love that because the painting by Velázquez was his early experiment with depth. You know, it was a really early painting where before that, um, if you look at a painting done even 1 year beforehand, he doesn't understand the sort of perspective yet. He hasn't
Perspective,
got
yeah.
the spatial
Depth.
sort of sense in the same way yet. And Apollo at the Forge of Vulcan is him having seen for the first time, having been to Italy for the first time. You know, you're talking about
Yes.
all of the Italian artists that you're influenced by.
Yeah.
He was in exactly the same position as you, having seen those artworks for the first time and experimenting to try and, you know, work out perspective, to work out
Yeah.
depth.
Or overlapping them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You overlap them, yeah.
There's such a beautiful historic symmetry at the fact that, you know, this is your first history painting. I mean, it's huge scale, this work that we're talking about. And those paintings are some of the hardest to paint because trying to create a composition like that is really difficult and make it work. And so, and you're looking at an artist who is struggling in the same way as you and who is sort of learning in the same way as you. So there's such a beautiful symmetry to that. I just had to say it because it's just yeah.
Yeah, and it's comforting to see that. I think after then he did. Was it after then he did Las Meninas?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, and then the Millers too, where there's like a painting inside at the back of the painting,
yeah.
with the Millers, yeah, like another scene at the back.
Yeah.
Maybe you remember Velázquez, yeah. So on Las Meninas too. So it's comforting to see that he went through that process too, exactly. And that it should only get better from him.
If you compare Apollo at the Forge of Vulcan to Las Meninas, which is painted in the last decade of his life, you know, he's clearly constantly learning how to, you know, do perspective, how to paint in different styles, looking at different artists, finding his own sort of artistic voice. And I don't know, it's really exciting talking to you because you're an artist who I can tell you're going to make amazing artwork in the future. You're already making really fantastic stuff right now. And, you know, we'll have this early history painting by you. And then, you know, hopefully in sort of 40 years time, you know, we'll have another and you can see sort of your own process as well and your own learning. Anyway,
thank you.
Sorry, I'm just kind of going off on an art historical tangent. But anyway. Should we get back to your art? Oh, I did want to ask about you're using this sort of the Western kind of language of history painting.
Yes.
And but you're using it as, you know, as a sort of Nigerian, as sort of for your own Yoruba culture. But history painting, I mean, you've talked about, you know, Delacroix and the sort of the Romantic generation. That was all a part of the kind of colonialism and that the generation of people who sort of looked at your culture in say, a derogatory way, in a, you know, in a respectful way. So I wondered if you've thought about, are you reclaiming history painting? Are you kind of, you know, are you sort of trying to like conquer it, or are you just using it because you've been inspired by it? I wonder if the sort of the colonial aspect has played into your use of this painting.
Yeah, no, I feel happy that it can be done first.
Yeah.
And then it can be done and can be done well first. And then also I don't really need to reclaim anything. I just want to use the style to tell my story. The style is direct. You know, it's not ambiguous. It's not. I could do abstract painting all day long. I could paint things and tell you it means this or it means that. But there's always a barrier between the viewer and the work itself. So all I'm trying to do is just make it as direct as possible. And I like the style, so I just want to use it. So colonialism, fine, it happened, and it was a terrible thing to happen then because it's like our culture was interrupted. Yeah. So, yeah. But I just want to tell our stories. I want to tell our stories. I want to tell the stories of you know, the great people in my in my lineage or in my ancestry that did remarkable, incredible things. You know, Shogo, Ogun, Obatala, all those guys. Some of them lived, they had flesh and blood, and they, you know, I do say, and I'm excited when I say that they did, you know, biblical scale things, that stories that are not being told now. And I have this ability to paint, so I want to use the skills to tell the stories, to tell the world that this is where we're coming from. This is what our history is. This is how incredible people, my own bloodline was. Yeah. So it's no reclamation, but just like educating the world about my culture.
Yeah. And it's so exciting because, you know, you have these, you know, incredible stories to tell, incredible figures in history, but they haven't, you know, there isn't this long lineage of ways that they're painted. And so you can kind of come up with fresh. Whereas, I mean, the story, you know, biblical stories have been told thousands of times. And so anytime one artist says, oh, I want to do a nativity scene, they're always working from this history.
Yeah.
Whereas you almost have a clean slate to depict these events in the way that you think is best and that, you know, you think comes across the most strongly. So I don't know, it's just quite exciting. And talking about figures in history, I wonder if you could tell us about History of the Yorubas Volume 2, because that's a really fascinating woman, is what that painting.
Okay.
Yeah, the scene of that painting.
Okay, her name is Efunshetan Aniwura. Okay, so she used to have, she was a slave owner, and she used to be a wealthy woman in southwestern Nigeria in the late 19th century, mid to late 19th century. So what drew me to the story was I often see young people, you know, flounders sometimes, maybe in their late teens, early 20s, looking for inspiration or looking for people to look up to. And I realized that most times you look out there, you know, we have it's a modern world. We have social media and lots of things on social media that people ingest every day. And I'm trying to show you that in your own lineage, in your own ancestry, there have been people that have done incredible things. You know, we have women, world leaders today that have done incredible things, that are doing incredible things in the world today. It's a beautiful, maybe I'll call it revolution. It's a beautiful thing happening here. But I want to show that in your own ancestry, there have been people that have beaten the odds. You know, we came from a predominantly patriarchal society where the women were kind of put second place to men, not as important as men were. But she, during this period, in the height of patriarchy, as it were, or as it is now even, she did remarkably well, to an extent where the Balogun that used to borrow arms and ammunition from her and men to go fight war became insecure because of how successful she was and sought to get her killed here. So my story is just to highlight, you know, female figures in our ancestry. There were lots of them like that have not been painted in this way that I want to. You know, we have Oya and goddesses too.
Yeah.
With beautiful stories, that haven't been told yet. So my purpose there was just to paint that this woman existed. It's not fiction. It's not myth now. It's a real person that existed over 200 years ago. And she did this incredible things then.
And who became the most powerful woman in sort of in the entire
era. To an extent where she was borrowing the Balogun men and guns to go fight wars. You know, that's incredible for that time. It's incredible. So I want to tell the stories.
No, amazing, and it's a really fantastic work as well. I realize we've gone over time, but I still have a few more things that I want to ask. So if you'll hang around for a little bit longer. First off, I wondered actually if we could take a chance to look at the work behind you and to talk a little bit, because I see the work behind you is unfinished. And I wondered a little bit about your process, because that's clearly, you know, the underlayers that you're using. So I wondered how you sort of develop the paintings that you're making. What is your process?
Okay, well, it's not well lighted anyway because of the studio lighting, but the purpose is it's simple. I get inspired by anything I see out there. You know, I may see someone's nose that looks interesting, and then I sketch it in my head, or if I have a piece of paper, then I'll sketch it and then employ it into whatever I'm doing at that point. So it starts as a sketch, basically just a plain line drawing. I have some sketches here. Maybe you'd like to see.
Yeah, I would
Would
love
you like
to.
some sketches?
Love to.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so sketches like this. This is how it starts. Just a line
Oh,
drawing.
wow.
Just it's basic the mouth, the nose, the eyes, and everything that's around it. And
Wow.
then I build up from there. So make a sketch, then you adjust the features, the proportions of everything. And I've realized that we humans are not we're not symmetrical when it
Yeah.
comes to bilaterally. We're not symmetrical. You know, there are variations. So this nostril, my nostrils, there. One is not the same shape as the other.
Yeah,
You know, my ears.
one of my face halves is thinner than the other. Yeah.
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 So you know, people have good sides and all that.
Yeah.
So I try to employ all these things in painting, where it's not just to make it symmetrical. Symmetry does not exist in real life.
Yeah.
It's variations that exist here. So a lot of things go into making the portrait. So I decide the principal features, you know, the eye, the nose, the mouth, and then from there I determine, you know,
Wow.
what the complexion is going to be, what the social strata they're on is going to be like, their backgrounds. You know, we have facial features, muscles that make our face change, expressions, you know,
Yeah.
minute expression changes in our faces here. So, you know, is it frowning? You know, when is the mouth pinched? Is the nostrils flared? Are they squinting? You know, are they angry? Are they happy? Are they sad? You know, hundreds and hundreds of expressions, possible expressions here.
Yeah.
So I rifle through everything possible and I pick whichever one works at that moment. So I modify the features as needed. Then I enlarge it to whether I'm working on canvas or on paper. So I do an enlargement with a projector or another method. So when it's enlarged there, I start with, I don't have any work in progress here that is earlier than this stage that I could show.
Yeah.
But then I start, you know, building up from the eyes, you know, just the contours, the basic shapes, you know, building them out, the contours and all that. And then what I do is I build from the surface, I build dark, and then I highlight back to the light. So I build dark on the shadowed areas, I add the shadowed areas, and then when I'm done with that, you know, I first make the contours as I want them. And the thing is this, when I start a portrait, it's open-ended. It's not, it's art, so I don't try to make it too fixed what the purpose is supposed to be, what the person will look like. So most times they always look totally different from what I started out to achieve. You know, since I just pick things from around and add whatever would make it work. So then, yeah, walk back to the light, add highlights and detail. You know, after the highlights, I added
video. Sorry, I was just going to say you have some great videos on your own Instagram.
Instagram, yeah, exactly.
It shows you doing those little highlights. It's really fascinating seeing
Yeah.
it work like that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So then detailing, you know, there are 1,000 things that make up a face. You know, even the eyebrows, the eyelashes, the eyebrows have highlights on them. The eyelashes, they have reflections on the eyeball, on the eyelashes, like the lower part of the eyelashes here.
Okay.
I think I'll do a video where I detail every single thing. Then, depending on where the light is coming from, you could have a highlight under the upper lip, under the lower lip. You know, yeah, it's fine, but it's there. You know, having the tear gland, the tear ducts at the corners of the eyes glistening because of moisture on them. So there's 100 things that go into them. So maybe I'll do a video soon to describe all these things.
Yeah. No,
So
I'd love to see.
At this stage, it's just been, I have all the contours done already. Now I just have to detail and add the pores and all that to it.
Exciting. I look forward to seeing what that one looks like when it's finished as well. Okay,
Okay.
I think I should ask you the last question because we've gone a bit over time. So what I wanted is, you've got all of these projects on the go. What are you most excited for? Coming up, what are you most excited for in the future of your career?
Just being able to tell our stories on and on, on a bigger platform, to be able to tell a wider audience our story, to be able to push the boundaries of what's possible now
Yeah.
when it comes to getting acquainted with the African culture, the Nigerian culture, the Yoruba culture to be specific here, because that's the culture I'm most familiar with. So being able to push this boundaries and reach a wider audience, it's enough excitement. I do say I have enough of a catalog of ideas to work on next 20, 30 years. I'm busy every day. I'm painting every day, and there's never nothing to do because the culture is so rich and intricate and diverse, and it's so underexplored, underexplored. Yes, so I want to it's a lifetime worth of work. So yeah, so
one day you'll need to have a studio of artists all working. You can be like Rubens or something with
like Rubens, yeah.
a whole cohort of underlings who are all helping you make these ideas. But no, I'm very excited to see more of your history of the Yorubas, more of your art as it comes out. And I should say that if anyone would like to see one of your history of the Yoruba, the volume 1, it's actually going to be on display in September, right? In Hastings,
yes.
So in the UK.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, do you want to give the details of that?
Yeah, so we're working with Rai Foundation. The name eludes me now, but working the foundation in Rai. Did you have the name down?
I have it. Yeah, let me just get it for you. Yeah, Bridget Point Rye. Yeah, so it's showing at Bridget Point Rye, which is in Hastings.
Hastings, yeah, UK. Bridgepoint Rye, Hastings, in the UK. So that'll be late September with so it's in collaboration with the Tafisa Gallery, which is in London too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the history of the Yorubas Volume 1 will be shown there, and it's if you want to attend, you can just reach out to the gallery to maybe get a reservation.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I'd like to attend. Hopefully, I can make it down to Hastings and go see the work in the flesh. Well, Jide, thank you so much for joining me, for joining us, all of the people watching. Thank you everyone for watching this interview, and yeah, just thank you for taking the time. It was fascinating to hear more about your art, and all the best for your future projects.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me here to speak about this. I'm thankful. It's been an exciting time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure. Okay, well, stay well, and I am going to end the live. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, everyone, for watching.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the
Thank
best.
you, everyone, for coming.
Bye.
All right.